Welcome to DFS Karma, where we talk about our favorite fantasy sports plays for football, basketball, baseball, and pretty much everything else. Be sure to check out and create an account with all of our partners, such as MonkeyKnifeFight.online, PrizePicks.online, and StatHero.online. Use the promo code KARMA on any of these sites to get an exclusive deposit bonus. And don't forget to check out all of our free fantasy content on DFSKarma.com, as well as our own premium plays. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Please welcome today's hosts.
What is up, Karma Nation? Welcome into the first ever edition of The Perfect Pivot, our new NFL GPP-based podcast. We have the cash process, we have game theory, which goes over a little bit of everything, and now we will be adding a GPP one that we will refer to as the perfect pivot. Pretty simple concept. We're going to more or less outline the chalk that we believe will happen each week, and then we will give you our favorite pivots. We're doing this a little backwards. I am Bales. I am your host. Ben is with me. Normally, he is the host. We flipped it up on you guys. So, Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm ready for week one. Everybody that knows me knows I'm predominantly a cash game player. So one of my goals for this season was to get better at tournaments. So hopefully doing this podcast throughout the season will just help us improve, myself included in that.
Oh, we'll get you in on it. Yeah, for sure. More or less what we're going to do is we're going to just say who we believe the chalk is. We'll do maybe a couple at each position, depends. And then we're going to pivot to one guy that's relatively close in price tag. There are guys that are going to be chalky. You have like Christian McCaffrey, obviously, this week. We're not going to talk about them because to pivot off of someone like McCaffrey, you have to change your whole team. It's not just a one-player pivot. We can outline the guys that are priced away from everyone that are the chalk. It's fine. But we're not going to give a recommendation off of them. Now, before we start, we do have our NFL package. You can get it weekly or monthly. Our season-long offer is over, I believe, but weekly or monthly is 100% fine. Just join the team. Ben, I know you had quite a bit of success in cash last season, and then obviously we have a bunch of guys that just go out and take down GPPs and find success there. So our Discord is honestly, it has been popping nonstop since basically, 2 weeks ago, of just everyone discussing more or less Devin Singletary, but also everything else that's happening in the NFL. So you're definitely going to want to get in there.
Yep.
And now I think with that out of the way, we can start up at quarterback. Lamar Jackson is probably always going to carry ownership. He'll be a little bit chalky. But we're going to discuss Cam Newton because Jackson is priced quite a bit away from everyone else. Newton gets Miami. We know they have a bad defense, and it looks like New England is going to be a tailor-made offense for Cam Newton. He's going to be the option. And now, who would you go if you're just pivoting off of Cam Newton here?
Yeah, so my favorite pivot at quarterback this week is Kyler Murray. I think that I've talked a couple times on podcast this week about being contrarian in week one, taking advantage of people just basing everything off of last season when we have no idea really what any of these teams are going to look like. I think this defense is going to take a pretty big step back. Still going to be good, but they're not going to be as elite as they were last year. They ended up giving up, they ranked top 3 in terms of allowing rushing yards to quarterbacks last season. Fred Warner missed a lot of camp. Bosa, D Ford, both missed time in camp. Obviously, DeForest Buckner's now in Indy. So I just don't think that they can repeat the elite level of production that they had last season. I think Kyler Murray can take a step in his second year, and I think that this is like, as long as the game's able to play, I know there's some situation with the wildfires out there, as long as the game's good to go. I think this is one of the best games of the week, and I don't really expect a ton of ownership to land there.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't see. I know you love Kyler Murray. We've talked about it 100 times. I thought for sure you were going Phillip Rivers.
I don't know. I don't expect, like, if I had any confidence in the Jaguars keeping in that game, I think Rivers would be interesting. But, if it happens, like where the Colts get up a couple scores, I just don't see him getting the volume that you need to win a tournament.
Yeah, I get that. It's so hard because anyone that reads my stuff knows that in this situation, my pivot is very clearly either Teddy Bridgewater or Derek Carr. I don't care which one you want to play. Both are fine. Both are going to be low owned. But I don't really want to give you that because it's more or less in my articles, and we talked about it on the pod. So I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. I get Golladay being doubtful is a big deal, but at the same time, it's going to drive down Stafford's ownership. It probably drives up Marvin Jones a little bit. But he still has plenty of weapons. You know what I mean? It's not like he's going in and his only receiver just got taken out. Not to mention, if Stafford's throwing it 50 times, do we really need Kenny Golladay in there at only 6,200? I feel like Stafford, the Golladay news is obviously going to hurt Stafford, but I feel like he's a quarterback that more or less can throw to anyone, and it just seems like a really good spot for us to get him at virtually no ownership.
Yeah, I like that call. I actually like that game. I know I said on the Game 3 podcast, I think that game's going to go over the total. Golladay being out does affect that, but I still think that, I think the Lions want to play kind of fast on offense, and I think the Bears should be able to put up points. So I like that game a lot, actually.
Yeah, we can move to running back. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, we talked about a little bit earlier, is going to garner quite a bit of ownership. He's 10K. The next closest is 2,100 away from him. So you can't really make a pivot here. So we're going to drop down to Josh Jacobs at 6,800. And for everyone watching, I know Alvin Kamara could get some ownership, but he's not quite projected at what Josh Jacobs is. So we're going to move to him. If you're pivoting off of the 6,800 Jacobs, who are you moving to?
Yeah, I think it probably has to be Dalvin Cook. He's 7,900 on DraftKings. Don't expect him to get as much ownership as Jacobs or McCaffrey. And look, the Packers' defense is good, but I think I would rather attack them on the ground than I would through the air heading into the season. I think this game should be close, and nothing has changed with Dalvin Cook's role, right? They didn't bring anybody in that's going to take any touches away from him. And I think that people are just kind of overlooking him. He might end up getting some ownership in tournaments, but I think it's a pretty good spot. And I don't expect him to be as high owned as McCaffrey or Jacobs, so I kind of like him sandwich in between them.
Yeah, I actually like Dalvin Cook. I considered him here, but I think we all know who I'm shifting to, and that is going to be Austin Eckler. He's only 7,000. But if you look at what he did last year without Melvin Gordon in the lineup, he was fantastic with Gordon in the lineup. Now, no Gordon. I know that they have Kelly. Maybe Jackson gets some run. I don't know. They don't scare me off. And anyone that doesn't think Austin Eckler is big enough to be an every down running back is just crazy. He 100% is. And what he can do in the passing game is more or less second to none. I know McCaffrey is elite, but so is Austin Eckler. Not to mention just a really good matchup against the Bengals. I feel like he's probably going to get some ownership, but not nearly what someone like Josh Jacobs is going to get. And he's only $200 more. So I have absolutely no issues going with Austin Eckler here. Are you even considering him, or is he completely out for you?
He's not completely out. I don't think he's a bad play. I don't have a ton of interest in him. I like Joe Mixon in that game a little bit. Like I said, I like Dalvin Cook. I think Aaron Jones is in play, so I like other guys in that pricing range, but I think the matchup's pretty good. I don't expect Cincy's defense to be super good. I think that if you're going to play Eckler early on in the season, before that, I think they're going to gradually ramp up Josh Kelly's usage as the season goes on, especially if they're not good. So I think if you want to play Eckler, it's probably going to be early on. I don't think Cincy has really the defense to combat him, and full PPR site like DraftKings, I don't think he's a bad play at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think Eckler actually is going to get worse as the season rolls on. Not because I don't think he can handle it or anything, but it does seem like they really like Kelly. Like, there's already quite a few reports that are coming out that Kelly's had a really good camp. And if that's the case, it's just a matter of time before they at least get him on the field. So take Eckler while you can. The second guy at running back is Miles Sanders at 6,300. it kind of seems like with him getting a questionable tag that his ownership is dropping a little bit. So come Sunday, I don't necessarily know how high owned he's going to be. But at the same time, like it's such a clear-cut spot to go where he's just severely underpriced. We know that he should be way more than 63. And it's the Eagles are 5.5 favorites. They could probably be running the clock out at the end of the game with him. Like it's a really good spot. And I'm pretty sure you're dead set on Miles Sanders in cash, assuming he's fine. And the other thing that I just quick wanted to mention with it is these players are getting questionable tags because they can't get probable tags, right?
Yeah, I mean, Miles Sanders is going to play. I'm fairly confident in that.
Everyone's really worried about all the players. Like, there's a ton of players that are questionable this weekend, but that's just because you can't list them as probable anymore. So if there's even a 1% chance that they're going to miss the game, they have to list them as questionable, which, obviously that implies more of like a 50-50 shot. And Miles Sanders is one of them. So if you're pivoting off Sanders, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to roll a little stack action here, and I'm going to pick Kenyon Drake to go with Kyler Murray. I think more just echoing what I said with Kyler Murray, I think that this defense is going to take a little bit of a step back. I think that it's going to be at least a competitive game, and even if it wasn't, Kenyon Drake is someone that could rack up some catches in garbage time. He had a really big game against this defense last year, and if their defense is going to take a step back, I think the matchup gets a little bit better, and he's someone that adds value in the passing game, which is really important on DraftKings, whereas on FanDuel, you're really looking for someone that you feel confident in getting a touchdown. Drake is someone that can get value without scoring a touchdown on DraftKings, given his ability to catch the ball.
Yeah, Drake was my guy too.
Oh, I stole it. All right, we're going to have to keep track of who snipes who on this throughout the season.
I was going to go Devin Singletary, but man, are people probably sick of listening to that. No, Drake, if you looked at his games against San Fran last year, he had 10 receptions.
Yep.
And both games were solid. It's just obviously the blowout was when he had 110 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and that was only on 15 attempts. So there's plenty of room. If they're going to give him a full workload of 20-plus carries like they did at the end of the year, Drake has basically as good of a ceiling as anyone. Probably not quite McCaffrey, I don't really count McCaffrey when I talk like that because he's just so much better than everyone else. But Drake's really not priced like it, which is the crazy thing.
Yeah, and so Fred Warner is a baller on defense, right? So if there's any chance that he's limited in this game, that is a huge effect on this defense and just something else that goes in Drake's favor.
Yeah, I mean, it seems I feel like he's like how there's just certain guys that are like so boom or bust that like they can win you the tournament. Whereas you play other guys and it's like, yeah, they'll probably do well, but they're not the piece you're relying on. I feel like Drake's the guy that has the tournament winning upside.
I agree.
And then we have one more chalk back. I think we all know who it is. 4K, Antonio Gibson. Is there? First off, I want to say I get that he's 4K, and if he like even punches in a touchdown, you're behind everyone. But in tournaments, I don't think it's a bad idea to pivot off of him because Washington has more or less already said that he's not going to have a mate. Like they're going to rotate 3 backs. So if Gibson just doesn't find the end zone, and let's say he only has like 2 or 3 catches, we all thought that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be like this passing game fixture. Obviously, they didn't need to, which is why he had so many rushes. But, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Antonio Gibson flops. Is there anyone around 4K that you're willing to pivot to?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Thompson is in play in tournaments. The guy that I'm going to pick, I don't know if this is really considered a straight pivot because I do think he's going to get some ownership, but Tariq Cohen at 4,900 is interesting, and I would rather play him in tournaments than Gibson, I think. The Lions allowed the second most receiving yards out of the backfield to running backs last season. We know that, obviously, that's Cohen's bread and butter. It does look like Montgomery is going to play in this game, and I think that there was a chance earlier in the week that Cohen was going to get some ownership, But if Montgomery ends up playing, I think people are going to move off of him, even though I don't really think David Montgomery affects Tariq Cohen that much because Tariq Cohen's not going to come out and get 15 carries. We're taking him for his receiving ability, which plays well on DraftKings. And I kind of said earlier that I like the over in that game, so I think Cohen at 4,900 is a pretty good tournament play. I
actually like that. I am going with Chris Thompson.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. Same price.
They're literally they're. I think 4K is the DraftKings minimum, right?
This year? They changed it. Yeah, it's 4K.
They don't have any other backs. They have James Robinson, who probably sees the lion's share of what a normal running back would do. But they're going to be losing, and they're probably going to be losing pretty quick, which means Chris Thompson is likely going to play at least basically the entire second half. If that's the case, we already know that Gruden is fine feeding him the ball. And the only thing that we don't like about Chris Thompson is that he's injury prone. Well, how much does it truly matter if you're playing him on a game-by-game basis? Could he get hurt? Sure, but he could also catch 6-7 balls. And for the stone cold minimum, imagine if he just squeaks in a touchdown. Like, you're gonna be absolutely set.
Yeah, I mean, the game script, the expected game script would set up much better for Thompson than it would James Robinson. And it wouldn't shock me if he caught, 4 or 5 balls at 4K. I think he's an interesting tournament play, more so than I did. Like, I wasn't super interested in him on Wednesday when we were talking because I assumed Zigbo was going to play, but now that he's out, I do think he's interesting in tournaments. That's
what I'm thinking too, because he's not the kind of guy that likely goes and wins it for you, but there's plenty of receiving upside, and I don't think like he's this great play and like on like FanDuel where it's half PPR, but full point PPR. Not many backs have the receiving role that Chris Thompson has. So,
for what it's worth, I did hear I saw a couple reports that at practices, Chris Thompson was getting a lot of red zone involvement, and that was when Fournette was still on the team. So. Take that.
Yeah, I heard that too, and I wouldn't be shocked. They seem to really like him, so I feel like it is a really good pivot because it's just there's nothing more to it. It's whoever outscores who is the winner. They're the same exact price, and it's minimum. So I think that's a really good spot. But moving on to wide receiver, it looks like Devonta Adams and his most likely 80 to 90% target share is going to be. He's going to be the chalk. At 7,300, who are you looking at off of him?
Yeah, I don't know. You might have the same guy, but it's got to be Julio Jones, right? I mean, everyone is talking the whole offseason. Calvin Ridley is going to see all these extra targets because, 97 vacated targets for the Falcons. They're going to go to Calvin Ridley. They're going to go to Hayden Hurst. I don't know why they can't go to Julio Jones, Not all of them, obviously, but, I mean, he can see extra targets as well. I think that with Hooper gone, he could see some more red zone looks. And one of my bold calls before the season was that this is finally the year that we see 10-plus touchdowns from Julio Jones. And if this game shoots out, I mean, we always like Julio Jones in shootouts, right? So I think that he's definitely going to go under-owned. I think Adams and Thielen both might have higher ownership than him.
Yeah, I'm good with that. The thing about Julio is he sees a lot of targets, absolutely, obviously, but it's not capped out. Like Michael Thomas saw 40 more targets than Julio?
Yeah.
Devonta Adams played one less game and saw like 6 less, 7 less, something around that. So it's not like Julio's necessarily capped out at what he's doing. So I have no issues, and I was going to go with him, but I'm fine completely changing mine if you take him. 6,600 is DJ Moore. I am expecting DJ Moore to just thrive in Brady's offense. And now that he has a real quarterback, I think that Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think Bridgewater's elite or anything, don't get me wrong. But I think he's at worst an average quarterback in the NFL. And that is just a massive upgrade over Kyle Allen. My slight worry is that Moore's targets drop because they now have Samuel and Robbie Anderson. If they start taking shots to them, but I'm not truthfully that worried about it. Everyone knows that I absolutely love this game. It doesn't look like DJ Moore's projecting for a lot of ownership. He's 6,600, and he's going to get a solid amount of targets. I think his ADOT actually rises quite a bit this year because I think Brady's going to be way more aggressive with him. And with Bridgewater, you would expect him to get a lot more efficient, would you not?
Yeah, I think just the whole offense obviously will be more efficient, but I think it sets up well for him. The matchup does too, because the Raiders just really struggled with fast receivers last season, and all these guys on the Panthers are fast, right?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other things is he only had 4 touchdowns. He was one of the best fantasy receivers out there, and he had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, top. I think he was 9th in total receiving yards.
So I mean, it only goes up from there, honestly.
Yeah,
but we can move to our next chalky option, which is he's so cheap, and man, he's such a good play. But Terry McLaurin is 5,600. He gets Philly. It seemed like at one point people were kind of getting a little worried about him because Darius Slay's there. It seems like that's out, and people just are going to play him. So, one, are you really looking at McLaurin in cash, or would you actually rather make a real pivot off of this?
Yeah, he's in my cash pool for sure. I don't have him in my build at the moment because I have 2 other Redskins, so I don't want to go. Like, if I'm playing 3 Redskins at that point, I would have to play Haskins, I feel like. So,
yeah.
I'm probably not going to play him, but I do think he's in play, and I think he will be pretty highly owned. The only interesting thing is, now that we got this Galladay news, how many people move from him to Marvin Jones, I think, is going to be interesting to watch throughout the weekend.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Or even move up from right now, especially with Jalen Reagor looking like he's going to play. Right now, the other chalk option that's being projected is Desean Jackson. He could stay chalky, honestly. I think the matchup's fine to keep using him, really. But with Reagor playing, doesn't it seem like people will probably move up from him to Marvin Jones? It's only 600 difference.
Yeah, and you also have Hollywood Brown, 5,100, was already going to be pretty popular, and now we got this news that Greedy Williams is out, Kevin Johnson's out, a couple corners missing for the Browns. I think that that will only inflate his ownership even more.
So let's just we'll take all 3 of them. They're all right. Projected chalky. And who around there are you moving from any of them to?
Yeah, I like Jarvis Landry at 5,900. I think if the Ravens are winning this game handily, obviously that sets up to get the Browns out of their expected great game script, which is going to be to run the ball every single weekend. Landry's Mayfield's safety blanket, right? It has been really since Mayfield took over in that Thursday night game against the Jets 2 years ago. He averaged, which I wrote in my game-by-game breakdown, Landry averaged over 120 yards against the Ravens in 2 games last year. We know that Marlon Humphrey will be on Odell, so I think some more targets can siphon towards Landry. And the Browns are going to score some points. I don't think they're going to be held scoreless, right? They'll probably score a touchdown or 2 even if they get blown out, even if it's in garbage time. So I like Landry at under 6K.
I actually am not on Cleveland, but I get where you're coming from, and I don't hate it. I just have a tough time playing Cleveland, especially their receivers against Baltimore. I'm going to drop down. The first guy I'll say is Henry Ruggs. I mean, I'm quickly becoming all in, completely all in on Henry Ruggs this week, and it's a bit scary for a rookie receiver, but the speed's there. All he needs to do is take 1 slant for a touchdown, and you're more or less set at 5,100. Outside of that, I'll give you 2 guys in the same offense, Jameson Crowder and Brashad Perryman. Denzel Mims has already been ruled out. If I'm picking off of talent here, I'm going Perryman. I have been saying more or less since he's been drafted that he is a very, very good receiver. I truthfully believe that. I just also think that he's basically always hurt. It seems like he shored up his drops quite a bit, and we saw him just dominate with Tampa Bay. And then Crowder, I don't know if he just has the Bills number or what's happening there, but he went in week 1 last year against the Bills, 14 for 99, and then in week 17, 8 for 66 and a touchdown. It's not like he had many dominant games, and 2 of them were against the Bills. I don't think he's the worst option. I just get a little bit worried that he is 5,200, which is a little expensive, I think.
Yeah, he did hit. He had a 17 target game against him last year as well. But if
Yep.
if I talk about Landry being Mayfield's safety blanket, Jameson Crowder is Sam Darnold's safety blanket, and it's like I think on DraftKings Crowder's fine just because he could realistically catch like 10 balls, right? Um, Especially if they're getting crushed. So I think he's fine on DraftKings. I wouldn't play him on FanDuel, and I'm not going out of my way to play him either way. But I do think he has a pretty high target floor, similar to some other guys, because they just don't have anybody to throw to at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a solid spot. Moving on to tight end, this is the final position we'll wrap up. We're not going to do defense, obviously, just punt defense. George Kittle is 1,200 more than anyone. He's projected to get some ownership. Hayden Hurst, I don't know if I necessarily believe if he's going to be a high-owned tight end, but right now he's projected for a little bit, and we know Seattle kind of struggles against tight ends. Who are you moving from Hurst? He's 4,300 this week.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm playing this a little bit different than you. I don't know if you have someone in this exact tier, but I think how I'm playing tight end, at least in tournaments, is I'm going all in on George Kittle in tournaments because I'm not going to be able to have him in my cash game build. And I also really like Mark Andrews as well. So I'm going to be spending up at tight end in tournaments. Kittle, I think, is just like one of the best plays on the entire slate at any position. And I don't think he's going to be too high owned just because of his price tag. And then I really like someone cheaper, which I'll talk about after you, which I think you probably know who it is because I'm probably going to play him in cash, honestly.
Yeah, I'm playing him for sure. Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that Mark Andrews and Kittle are in the two best spots for tight ends this week, and I don't think that they're going to be overly owned. I think they'll get some just because of their names, but people are really going to spend down. At where Hurst is, I think I would probably go Mike Gesicki. It looks like he's going to play in the slot quite a bit. It could be a red zone fixture for them. So, you got to take your chances. We all know that a tight end's going to pop up from this mid-tier, and they're going to be priced at like 6K where Mark Andrews is. It seems to happen every season. I think Gesicki's the guy that does it this year. With that being said, I'm probably not playing someone that's like 4,500. I'm probably playing 6 to 7K or I'm paying under the 3K where we know where we're going here.
I absolutely love that Mike Gesicki call. I had Gesicki in my final rankings for season long. I had him like 5th or 6th overall. I'm not even lying. Like I had him very high. I'm expecting a big year from him. Someone actually replied to me because I put out a tweet before the year, like for season long, and I was like, "These are guys I'm targeting in my drafts this weekend." And Mike Gesicki was one of them. And somebody replied about how he's not the starting tight end on the roster, and I don't think that matters. I would much rather him be playing, full-time slot receiver than him starting at tight end. Like I could care less. So I think that the role is going to be good. And this Patriots defense had some opt-outs. On defense, obviously. Patrick Chung is a big one if we talk about a linebacker in the middle of the field. So I think it's a better spot than what it would have been last season. And I'm just really high on Gesicki this year. So I think that's a really good call. And he is not going to be high owned at all.
Yeah, I think he takes a major step forward. I tweeted out and said, wherever you have him ranked, it's way too low.
Yeah.
I did it for a bunch of players, but he was one of them. The chalk at the moment, assuming he's healthy, is going to Chris Herndon at 3,300. I know who you're going for the pivot here. I'm also going this player, so go ahead and just outline him because you love him.
Yeah, it's Logan Thomas. He's 2,800 on DraftKings. I've talked a couple times about how I think the Redskins play a little bit faster this year under Scott Turner. And apparently, look, all we have to go off of is what beat writers say because we haven't been able to watch these teams play in preseason, but it says something that he came out and won the starting job, right? I know Thaddeus Moss was hurt and didn't get to go to the combine and all that, but they did sign him as an undrafted free agent, and then they just flat out cut him. So I don't know if that plays I don't know if it's because he didn't look right because he was hurt, or I don't know if it's because they like Logan Thomas that much.
I think they cut him and put him on their reserve. Where they get to hold on to. I'm assuming it's because they just don't think he's ready.
Yeah. And I think that just the fact that Logan Thomas was able to win the starting tight end job when he's only played tight end for a couple seasons, I think says a lot about him. The coaches seem to like him, And apparently Haskins has a pretty strong connection with him. At 2,800, look, you're feeling good if he catches a couple passes. So let alone if he ends up finding the end zone somehow, you're going to be so far ahead of everybody just because he's so cheap. And I like to bet on really athletic players, which obviously he is, considering he played quarterback in college. I just think it's too cheap, and hopefully the ownership stays down as we head into Sunday.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'll give you someone else that's just super cheap. It's a great play. I don't know if I'd say it's a great play, but it's a solid pivot with Robert Tanyan at 2,500. He's
Bob Tanyan.
Dude, he's the
I love
mid.
Bob Tanyan. So anyone that knows me knows that I love to grind preseason DFS. Bob Tanyan is like a preseason DFS goat from the last couple of years. Like really good preseason play.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be Green Bay's receiving tight end.
He beat out Jay Sternberger was good in college. Yeah, he was good in college, and he couldn't hold off Bob Tanyan for this tight end job. It's crazy, but he's gonna be on the field, dude, for sure.
Min price, so I don't have any issues whatsoever taking your shot there. That is everything that we got for you guys. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. Comment your perfect pivot, who you're going off of a chalky option. You can say who you think is chalk and then who you're pivoting to, or you can go off of who we said. Subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to pick up one of our packages. This is going to be a weekly podcast that we record Friday night, probably drops late Friday night, early Saturday morning. But we will see you guys next week, and good luck.